gentlemen, we'll start questions on the second row with Danny P. today.
Coach, you've been around this rivalry for a couple of seasons now. Just in your mind, what home court advantage, what does that play in it, whether your experience is up in Oxford or here? Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in this particular rivalry is that it's a big advantage, just like it is in, the other rivalries that I've been involved in. But, our crowd was amazing. The last time we played, last Saturday, and we had a chance. Obviously, we didn't get it done, and I would imagine we'll have a very similar or better environment, considering how both teams are doing, and given that Ole Miss is coming in with an undefeated SEC record, we'll need every person, every body that we can get to create that buzz that we're looking for.
Go ahead, Paul, and then we'll go down the line.
Obviously, the opponent had a lot to do with it. You played two pretty good perimeter teams the past two games. But when you look at the film and look at the three-point defense, I know you've talked about breakdowns before, but what kind of grabs your attention with that when you see those percentages the last couple games?
Yeah, I mean, it jumps off the page at you. Kentucky is very well known for their three-point marksman, and Jackson Robinson, who's a heck of a player, hadn't been shooting at that clip. He was 29% for the year, and then he gets 7 for 10, and that happens every night all over college basketball. It wasn't as if we were playing him as a 29% three-point shooter. That wasn't the case at all. We knew historically what a good shooter, he was. And then, Almanor, the same thing in that particular game, the Kentucky, those two made 10 together out of 14, I think 7 for 10 and 3 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a big chunk of it. And again, he hadn't been shooting the ball great volume, but historically, prior to coming to Kentucky, so we treated him that way, and they, we just, and I know it sounds boring and cliche-ish, but overall, it just goes back to, guarding the ball. We were getting broke down at point of attack, and in the Auburn game, that was probably the most disappointing thing. Is I just didn't feel we were very prideful on the ball, and you could attribute it to a lot of things. We had some distractions heading into the game. The crowd was a distraction. Riley was, game time decision, literally a game time decision that he made. And then this isn't any sort of excuse, but Broome, not playing obviously didn't hurt them in this particular game. But I don't know what it did for the psyche of our guys. Like, not that they could ever think anything was going to be easy on the road in this league, especially against a team of that caliber. But it just, from where I sat, it couldn't have started any worse. And, it was one of the earlier timeouts I think I've ever called. And then we had to call another one, in the first half because of the run and the crowd and the way we were playing. And so we just never got our feet underneath us in that particular game. And the three-point shooting, again, we just weren't great on the ball. We had some breakdowns off the ball. We had some, game plan issues that didn't get into the game, which is disappointing at this point. We spent a lot of time on that, and when it doesn't get in the game, it's hard. It's frustrating for all of us, including the players. But in review of the film, I mean, hats off to Auburn. I mean, they had a lot of shot makers, and they have a lot of shot makers. I mean, they got multiple guys that shoot in the 40s from beyond the arc. And then, it's contagious, man, for the offensive team. When it gets going, everybody, wants to be a part of it. And it's contagious both ways, unfortunately, because it was contagious for us. On the other end is we lost our confidence, I think, and we just couldn't find our way from beyond the arc.
Benjamin and Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the returning players on this team. Everyone thinks about Josh and Cam, and Keyshawn's gotten a lot of attention. Sean Jones sometimes gets lost in that, but I feel like he's come along really well on the defensive end. Has sort of found his role on this team. How do you feel like he's been playing lately, and where do you feel like he can still get better?
Yeah, his game has matured, and his understanding of our scheme obviously is really, really good, given his experience here and time. And like you said, he's rounded into form to understanding, where his niche is at, and how to play and how to, be valuable for us, even though it may not all show up on a stat sheet. Even just little things like, getting an offensive rebound or driving it into the paint and then knowing that there's trees, in the lane in the SEC and not throwing up, a bad shot. Those things don't show up. Just being in the right spot, defensively, checking his man out in a religious way. Like, he's the best checkout guy we got. He's not the best rebounding guy we got, but he allows other people to get the rebound because he's so assignment correct on checking his own man out. And then, knowing that, the way people are defending him, he can get a rhythm three off, most possessions if needed. And, the shots that he is taking are mostly uncontested and rhythm. And he's been working on it, and, hopefully he'll start knocking some down.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that this is the first time ever both State and Ole Miss are ranked at the same time they play each other. How cool do you just think it is for both of these universities and the state to have both of these programs playing at such a high level right now?
I wasn't aware of it until about a minute before I walked in. Our esteemed SID made me aware that was the situation, and I don't know exactly what I said, but it was something like, really? It surprises me. I would have never guessed that, thunk that. It kind of amazes me, to be honest with you, all the times that they played and how many years it goes back, and for that not to happen, it is what it is. So it's cool. It's great for the state. Hopefully the environment will be off the charts. It always is, but maybe even a little more now because of that opportunity for both programs, and it'll be here soon enough.
David, go ahead, and then we'll go to Jacob.
Josh's assist turnover ratio is still leading the SEC. He's done a great job in that regard. But is his work having to have the ball in his hands so much of the time and then taking the point of defense, is that taking anything away from his offensive game, or is just in one of those little slumps right now?
As you know, I don't like to speak for my guys. I obviously talk to Josh on a daily basis, but we don't drill deep on that subject matter all the time. I don't know. I think people still circle his name, in red pen every single time, and he's getting the best defender in a league full of high-level athletes and defenders and coaches and game planning. And certainly, like always, with more and more games under his belt, people understand, where sweet spots are, and trying to make it as difficult as they can, on him. And then, like you mentioned, for us, with his improved vision and progression reads as a ball handler, we're asking him to do, more that way. And that's been a positive with, like you said, him leading the league in assists to turnovers, especially given the fact that, teams are game planning for him. And when he comes off the ball screen, there's usually two on the ball for an extended period of time, where, that's not always the case with the rest of our guys. So he has a little more pressure, on him, and, which maybe is one of the reasons why, his assists are up that way, because of having to give up the ball a little bit more. But the one thing with Josh is, I don't think I've ever believed in a player more than him in my entire career. And I've coached some great players, but my confidence in that young man is through the roof. And I can't speak for him, but I'd imagine our staff and our locker room feels the same way because of what's inside Josh and how he goes about his business. And it's just a great reminder that, these kids are human. They're not machines, they're not robots. And but again, I'll go back to what I said. I wouldn't want anyone else out there fulfilling that role for our program than Josh Hubbard.
Coach, and what are your kind of impressions watching this Ole Miss team on film?
Coach Beard and his staff have done a tremendous job of putting together a tough-minded, connected team on both ends of the floor. They're a much better defensive team this year than they were last year. They're more physical. They play a unique style in that, for the most part, they do a lot of switching on the ball and off the ball. With all the positions, normally it's more the 1 through 3, 1 through 4 do a lot of switching in this day and age, but they'll even get the 5 involved because they have so many pieces on the floor that are similar in size, and I think they have a lot of confidence in their guards to fight the bigs and their bigs to keep the guards in check. So you don't see that very often, which causes you on the offensive end to do some more game planning than maybe you normally would, which takes time and thought, and so it's a good approach for them. And then on the offensive end, they got 6 guys that average between 9 point something and 13 point something. So what a luxury to have that much balance and not having to rely on one guy any given night. And they're a little old school in that way down there too. They run more of the motion offense that you don't see very often anymore. It's South Carolina does some of it too in our league, but you see more spread out, dribble drive, ball screens, all that things that are more in vogue, if you will. So again, another area where you got to tweak, what you do going into a game like this because of how they play on both ends of the floor.
Got time for a few more. We'll go to Paul and down the line again.
Not so much a specific injury question on Kanye, but I know the rules are kind of different in basketball compared to football when it comes to redshirt and being able to medically redshirt. But is there a chance where he could medically redshirt this year if he doesn't make it back? Or I didn't know the limit of those games or how that's kind of qualified exactly in basketball.
Yeah, that's not on my I don't have anything to do with that. That's not under my watch, if you will. So I don't know anything about that right now.
Not that you guys need any more motivation to play Ole Miss, but you mentioned before the Kentucky game that them coming off a loss could work to your detriment. And on the flip side of that, Ole Miss coming off a massive road win over a top 5 team. Do you feel like that's heightens the importance of this game and how your players are preparing for it even more?
I hope so. If I don't know if it matters in this game because of the obvious proximity, in the state. I don't know if it matters, but certainly you would think that all their senses would be on high alert, and their concentration and focus in the film room and the court when we're with them will be at its highest because of the rivalry. But more importantly, it's an SEC game against a 4-0 team in our league. And so everything just lines up that, you would think we'd get the best effort in leading up to the game. And certainly when the ball is tipped, I'd imagine you'll see 2 teams really competing at a high level.
Sam, wrap us up.
When you just look back at when you first took over this program a few years ago up until today, what do you just think has been the key toward rebuilding this program to where it is right now?
Yeah, and right now in middle of the season, that's not something that I ponder. It's more maybe a off-season, question, and even then, I don't know. We just try to try to work every day and keep our nose to the grindstone and try to make the program better in all areas. And, hopefully we'll continue to do that.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.